I'm talking to you from my favourite room in the house, atop my toilet, about a bit of a crappy subject. Money. More specifically, we're looking at my 10th year earnings as a freelance filmmaker. Okay, it's technically my 11th year, but 10 just sounds way better. A quick disclaimer. I'm making this as a follow-up to an early video that I made about how much I earn in my first year as a freelance filmmaker. It's deemed incredibly un-English to talk about money in this open way. I don't know why it's such an awkward subject in our culture, but it just is. That said, I'm very aware that we live in incredibly turbulent times where money is getting increasingly tight for a lot of people. The cost of living and energy prices have never been higher in the Western world, so if money is a subject that upsets you, then please don't watch this video. This isn't intended as any sort of brag, but as transparency around a subject that I've always found hard to learn about myself. I'm going to talk primarily in my native currency of pounds sterling, but I will bracket the approximate US dollars at the time of posting. But first, a lesson on net profit and UK tax. Feel free to use the chapter points to skip this bit if you already are in the know or find tax as mind-numbingly boring as I do. For those that don't know, net profit is after costs are taken out of the equation, but not tax. So let's say I make £10,000 in a year. I have £2,000 in expenses for travel costs, kit rental, software subscriptions, etc., leaving me with a net profit of £8,000. I then still have to pay tax on that. So don't be thinking I'm sitting with £8,000 at the end of this hypothetical tax year. 19 to 20% corporation tax, depending on what year we're looking at, due to the way that I'm registered to trade here in the UK. If I actually want to take it out of the business to pay myself, I then have to pay the relevant income tax, which, if I pay myself a salary, can vary from 0% here in the UK up to the first £12,570, 20% on everything up to £50,270, 40% up to £100,000. Then you lose your £12,570 allowance as you pass the threshold up to £150,000. Then, if you make it past £150,000, you start paying 45% on everything over that. If instead I decide to pay myself in dividends, then the rates vary a bit, so you don't get hit quite as badly from the double taxing, but it still definitely stings, with basic rate tax being at 7.5% on top of that 19% you've already paid, higher rate being at 32.5%, and the additional rate being at 38.1%. Before I break down my 10th year as a freelance filmmaker, let's have a look at the interim years net profit to give you a fuller picture of how things are going. 2012. What I call my first proper year as a freelance filmmaker. I made a net profit of £7,703. 2013, £15,208. I'm filming quite a few behind the scenes and in the studio type videos at this point, normally going out at around £250 a day, and often a lot less for edits. I'm still playing and touring part-time around work in the band. 2014, £40,194. This is the year that I start working for a production company on a salary. I leave the band and I take on some side hustle jobs when I can. Corporate gigs and low-budget music videos on the weekends and using holiday time. 2015, £45,030. This is my second and last year at the production company. They loan me out for the latter part of the year to work on The Voice UK, though I'm getting paid my usual salary but being billed out at £250 a day as the digital director. Bonus income on top of my 30k salary comes again from side hustling on weekends and during the holidays for a mixture of music, corporate and even brand work this time, making my very first stop motion animation for Vine. Remember that? 2016, £74,612. I'm back full-time freelance. I've made a load of contacts whilst on The Voice and managed to get regular do a bit of everything, shoot, edit, repeat work from a number of agencies specialising in social. I start making a stab at music videos with more than £1,000 budget for the first time, but lose more time than actually make money in that area. I also land a 3-week editing job for an MTV show, using Avid. Ugh, I don't like Avid. I'm charging a pretty standard day rate of $450 and less, but there are still the edit jobs that come in between $250 and $300, plus charging for a few bits of 5D Mark II/A7S level kit when I can manage it. 2017, £89,290. More of the same agency work. I also got my first freelance DP gig, paying a whopping £650 a day for 2 weeks for Booking.com. I even got paid for my rest days. Thanks for the recommendation, Tom Welsh. I couldn't believe my luck. 2018, £90,924. Not a lot new to report this year. Off the back of that Booking.com gig, I'm now confidently charging myself out at a much higher day rate to new people that I'm working with. I also start doing the odd bit of After Effects work for some music labels. I direct a few music videos where I actually get paid on, if you can believe it. 2019, £51,880. This was the year one of my larger regulars, an agency that had gone from a staff of 3 to over 130 in just 5 years, no longer needed me, largely due to the fact they now had a whole video department of over 30 staff. I think the total here reflects just how much my income had been dependent on them. Never a good idea having all your eggs in one basket. I also lost a lot of regular work from another small agency, as they seem to have found a similar do-a-bit-of-everything type person that they like better than me. 2020. £46,565. The year that I started to say no to most editing jobs. I was keen to start focusing as solely a director. I spent 4 months of that year working on a BBC comedy sketch show. I made a not awful, but definitely not great, £15,000 in those 4 months, which was enough, along with a couple of other things, to not warrant doing a second season. It was also the first year that I made as much as £1,000 in a single day rate. Still not APA, but getting there. Year ending 2021, £49,017. The pandemic ate into the first 5 months of this year before things went totally crazy busy. I started editing too much again, and just saying yes to absolutely anything and everything I could get my hands on. At the start of the tax year, as I sat at home in lockdown wondering if I was going to have to move back in with mum, I was doing animations for a guy on Instagram for just 60 quid for the day. And by the end of the year, I was billing APA rates on brand jobs, which is north of £1,200 a day. At the end of this tax year, I took out a loan and invested in over £25,000 worth of kit that I knew I'd probably be able to rent out on a semi-regular basis. 2022. Possibly the best year that I'll ever have in terms of quantity of work and the amount that I'm being rewarded for it. Will I ever manage a year like this one again, or is it just a freak knock-on effect from the pandemic? This remains to be seen. I actually found this pretty interesting, for myself at least, if no one else, when batching the sort of work together to make this video for you guys. As for one, I really hadn't realised how much of my income was coming from editing. I've been saying for well over half a year now that I really need to pack it in again and just focusing on the directing and DPing side of things. But now I'm not so sure. As you guys know from many of my other videos, it's not uncommon for me to wear more than one hat on a job. So I've tried to break this down into the different sorts of roles I've been playing. As you also know from the Perception video, I'm a director. So let's see how much sole directing I actually did. I worked just 16 days in total as solely a director, making £16,975. As solely a cinematographer shooting for other directors, I did dramatically less this year than previously, working just 2.5 days, making a total of £1,950. I think a result that's come from the pandemic that I've benefited from is being asked to do a lot more directing, DPing work. I'm not talking videographer work, I'm talking director DP, director cinematographer. They're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm still expected to light to the level that I would do if I was just DPing. I'm still expected to do all the prep work necessary to direct the thing properly. But being able to do these 2 things to a certain level has really worked to my advantage. As a director DP, I worked a total of 40.5 days in the tax year ending 2022, making a total of £61,674. This is by far my highest earning category, especially relative to the amount of days that I worked. And the sort of money I'm making on the type of jobs I'm doing doesn't even begin to scratch the surface to what some of the big commercial directors out there are doing. I've titled this next category as videographer work. Smaller self-shooter type stuff, shot on my S1H or similar, doing everything from sound to camera to directing to whatever. I'm sure a lot of people out there know what I'm talking about. So in terms of videographer work, which often would include kit as well, I worked 8 full days, making £8,108. So £8,108 for 8 days work sounds like a lot, and it is, but that's also covering the cost of all of my kit. Camera, sound, and even a bit of lighting here and there. Producing. Now, I'm not a producer. I hate producing. But on some of these music video type jobs and a couple of the corporate jobs, there has been some producing to be done. More often than not, when that happens, I end up not getting paid. But I did get paid for 4 days of production time, even though I think they all ended up being more than 4 days, but they were at good rates. So my 4 days of producing time made me £1,800. Editing, a dark horse, always ticking along in the background. I had no idea. I worked a total of 107 days as an editor in the year ending 2022. That's a lot of days. And for that, I made no, I didn't. And for that, I made £46,585, which is really good. But when you compare that to the directing DP rates comparative to the number of days, it's not good. And I hate editing. Like, I don't hate it, but it's just, I don't like it. I've been doing it for too long. I just need to do less of it. Only do the sorts of jobs that I want to do. But then money. Animating. After Effects type work. This has often been tacked on to some of those editing jobs, but also I've been sought out by people that know that I can do this sort of thing to do it specifically. I worked a total of 20 days as an animator. Animator is a bit of a stretch, just a guy that knows how to use After Effects. For those 20 days, I made £8,885. So those are all the jobs that I did. 198 days worth of work. And around that, plenty of days that I was working and not getting paid for, or writing treatments that got turned down, or prepping for jobs that ultimately fell through. There is one more stream of revenue though, and that's passive income, which I talked about in an earlier video that you can watch here. I attempted 4 streams of passive income this year, one of which where I've invested time but made nothing is selling stock footage. I was fortunate enough to sign a deal with Film Supply this year, but have yet to actually see any return on that work. Remember that comedy show that I worked on in 2019 that I've used in quite a few examples on this channel? For that show this year, I received my first royalty check because it got a load more plays on BBC Two that weren't originally scheduled. For that, I got a check of £1,077. My second actual source of passive income comes from peer-to-peer rental. I go through a site called Fat Llama, and in the first year that I signed up, I made over £2,000 in rentals. But this year, I made just £233. Revenue from this site has dropped dramatically over the years as more people join the platform and try to undercut each other. The commission that Fat Llama takes has also increased for the second time since I've been on the platform, meaning it's becoming a lot less worth the hassle. Another form of making money with my kit though was directly on jobs, whereas that's as small as bringing my monitor on, my easy rig, filters, all of these things have a rental value. And whilst I might not have paid for everything yet, I've certainly made a good dent in the first year. Kit rental that I directly got on jobs with myself totaled £12,583. Bear in mind the word passive income with this is a little loose because there's maintaining and looking after the kit, loading in, loading out. Like, you've got to do something, and you've also got to invest the money up front in the first place, but it's still a pretty good wage of money for just owning stuff. It's a bit of a dangerous game in the filmmaking world, particularly with cameras, as the technology moves so fast and the upfront cost is so high. But I think if you pick a few of the right things that are timeless to your productions, such as filters that I use all the time, or an easy rig, which I use pretty much every time, then these things will soon more than pay for themselves. So for passive income, that's a total of £13,893. There are also a few other income anomalies that I haven't included in there in order to try and give you a clear picture of what was earned within the year. Like, I paid in for hired-in kit insurance at a very costly £3,000 for the year. But then when it's my insurance being used on the job, I'll ask something relative to the budget to cover the cost of this. So a couple £100, sometimes nothing at all, but from having done enough jobs over the year, I've easily made an additional £1,000 on my initial outlay of £3,000. This could have gone either way, because if the work hadn't come through, then you can't ask for your money back from the insurance company. And if I decided not to do that and pay for insurance on a job-by-job basis, it works out a lot more expensive. Everything I've just shared with you is yet to be checked over by the accountants, but my accountancy software is telling me when all is said and done, my net profit as a filmmaker for the tax year ending April 2022 is £162,000, or approximately $213,000, which as a number is an absolutely insane figure to me. It'd be awesome if this was all cash that I was sitting on to spend on a life of luxury, but alas, it's not. As I explained up front, there's a ton of taxes and overheads to take into account, but still, I'm definitely calling this a financial win for my own records. Did I make the money doing only the sorts of jobs I love and making work that I'm incredibly proud of? Absolutely not. Will I make anything like this amount of money again in my entire life? There's a very high possibility that I won't. But then again, last year I worked alongside a commercial director who made £250,000 in a single 5-day shoot. So, a boy can dream. If you found this video interesting or insightful in any way, then leave a like below. Would a video on day rates interest you, people of YouTube? Talking expectations, industry standards and such? Let me know in the comments. If you're interested in learning more in the way of filmmaking financials, then check out this playlist I put together. And make sure to subscribe for more semi-helpful tips and interesting insider industry knowledge.